Yes, thank you, Eudacia. And so,
Okay.
again, we're excited about the presentation tonight, having begun a series of presentations on purity on last Friday. Last Friday we talked about lust. Today we're going to be talking about pornography and masturbation. Our presenter is none other than Elder Kevin Beneby, one of the serving elders at the Highbury Park Church of Christ. Kevin is a family man, um, uh, the father of three sons, and he is a dedicated husband to Sister Denise Beneby. And Kevin has gleaned skills, having been a part of a family uh, um, oriented program at Harding University, and so he has some background in counseling, and I think he's eager to share um, with us from his vast reserves on counseling and sexual matters and forgiveness and however it presents tonight. And so give him your ear, give him your full attention. And I'm quite sure he's going to be asking questions along the way. So feel free to engage him, to ask questions and make comments. Kevin, I yield to you.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate those kind words. And indeed, we want to make it interactive tonight. And so we want to invite you to feel free to ask the question, make the comment, and as we seek to be guided by the outline before us, but we certainly want to give room for interaction tonight. Let me just see if I could get this screen shared um, so we can get the outline before us. Let's see here, okay. Um, let's see, okay. Okay, I think we are ready to go. Okay, just again, welcome all, and good to have all of you on the platform. Let me just say before we proceed that what is said and shared here in our time together is in the context of empathy. It's in the context of understanding God's redemptive work towards us. It's in the context of us understanding that wherever we are in our move towards God, if there are struggles, if there are issues that impede our relationship with God, we want to say that this presentation is in the context of the understanding that God is able to take us from where we are and bring us to where He wants us to be. And we are here to help one another. This presentation is in the context of support and help through knowledge and through helping us to understand a bit of the subject matter of pornography and masturbation. And so we are here not to throw stones at anybody. We are here to say to you, if there's a struggle, if there's an issue in these areas, we are saying that help is available by the resources of God, and certainly we want to be encouraged by that. Okay, pornography and masturbation. Hey, you know, we said it. You know, there are certainly some taboo connotations that are attached to the words pornography and masturbation, but as indicated earlier, the one who introduced me, it is with us in the shadows, perhaps, but these phenomenons are with us, pornography and masturbation. And so we want to shine a light on it. You know, it's hard to, if you drive around, you know, society, drive around the city, and you see folks, you know, in the food stores, in the wash houses, on the streets. You know, there's more to us, as you know, than what we see. We see children, so we know that man, our fellow Bahamians, our fellow human beings, they are sexual. They are sexual in nature. They have a side of them that is sexually expressive. And so, but when we consider pornography and masturbation, we are looking at a side of the sexual expression that has problems for man. And certainly if we want to serve God, as we will see, these areas, these events, these behaviors, they and experiences, they present problems, difficulties for a person, for our interpersonal relationships, and certainly with our relationship with God. And so, let me just say this: God has created wonderfully. God has provided us with certain desires, as we will see in the right context, are good, are great. But the enemy has worked, that is Satan, he has worked to cause us and influence us to experience such desires, to experience such pleasures outside the proper context. And so we want to just say that initially. But we are here to help each other, and we want to do so in the context of empathy and understanding that God has the power and the resources to help us all, wherever we are, in a behavior, in a particular habit that is outside of his will. He's able to help us from that very point. Okay, so I want to initially start with a quotation, and I want to ask a question after I read it. A 38-year, so I want you to pay attention to the quotation. A 38-year man with sexual obsessions and repeated sexual acting out professed continued love for his ex-wife. He had failed to reconcile with her several times because of the recurrence of his sexual symptoms. He came to medical attention after his most recent attempt at reconciliation failed, and in sheer desperation, he had self-amputated his genitals with a shotgun in hopes of ridding himself of his sexual obsessions. So the quotation helps to see and presents an individual, according to Paul Reagan and Peter Martin. It presents to us the quotation, a gentleman who had some problems with his wife. He had some interpersonal relationships. He had some problems in his interpersonal relationship, and what appeared at the cause of that was his sexual obsession. In view of this, out of sheer desperation, he sought to self-amputate his genitals with a shotgun. Let me ask you a question. When he did that, when he self-amputated his genitals, his penis or his testicles, his genital area, do you think that he rid himself of the sexual obsession? And this is where you kick in right away. Somebody. Do you think that the 38-year-old man rid himself of his sexual obsessions by self-amputating his genitals?
Not really, because
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I said not really because the action what he did was like a outward action, but like the sexual desires that he was experiencing, that's like something deeper within himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So you say no because there's something other than the genitalia, that is causing the obsession. Anybody else? Do you think he rid himself of the sexual obsessions by self-amputating his genitals?
I see Janet said no.
Okay.
Yeah, I can explain it. My name is Janae. Yeah, it's pretty similar reasons because that's an outward thing that he was dealing with, like a physical thing around his issue, but he wasn't getting to the core of why he does what he does. So if you're not dealing with the core, you're still going to have the desires.
Where do you think the core may be, Janae?
I don't know his story. Everybody has a story of why they do what they do. So for example, if you were molested or if you had something happen to you as a child, perhaps that may have sparked the healing and the need to heal from that, sparked them doing it and dealing with themselves in that way.
Okay.
Potentially, just an example.
I like how you answered that. You are approaching it from the environmental factors that the person might have encountered as a young person, But in the body itself, where do you think, let me ask you this, Janae, where do you think the sexual pleasure is registered?
Brain.
In the well?
Your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So while the genitalia has a part to play, really the pleasures are registered in the brain. There's an area of the brain called the pleasure reward center. And so while he sought to self-amputate the genitalia, yet indeed is understandable that his issues continued because of what's happening in his brain or his mind, his thoughts. Thank you very much. Anybody just want to give it a shot? Well, I can give you the answer. Eh? So what I was looking for. So let's move on. Okay, there are many sexual obsessions. Okay, and of course we are talking about pornography and masturbation. We want to consider pornography and masturbation as being in the sphere of sexual obsessions and addictions. Okay, so these sexual behaviors can indeed turn into addictions and obsessions. And so we want to consider that as we move ahead. Okay, what is regarded as pornography? Okay, certainly there are varied answers to the question about what is pornography. So let's see what is being said out there with regard to what is pornography. Okay, let me say that is pornographic. What are we understanding? Okay, sexually explicit material as content that depicts sexual activities in concealed ways, often with close-ups, with aroused genitals, penises, vaginas, and of oral and anal or vaginal penetration. Okay, so we have the explicit presentation of the genitalia and other orifices. Illicit internet sites portraying sexual behaviors and pictures, and practices. And sometimes, even as you would go on the computer, minding your own business, not checking for, not at all inclined towards moving towards pornography, something pops up. Something pops up. Say, what in the world is this? How does it get here? And so those who are peddlers of pornography, those who seek to promulgate it and advance it, they have skillfully manipulated the internet, skillfully manipulated the internet world out there to advance their cause. Websites that describe people having sex show clear pictures of nudity of people having sex, or show a movie or audio having sex, show clear pictures of nudity of people having sex, or show a movie or audio that describes people having sex. Pretty much covered all the bases, eh? Material, number 4, that creates or elicits sexual feelings or thoughts, and B, contains explicit images of descriptions of sexual acts involving the genitals. 5th definition for pornography, material that is predominantly sexually explicit and intended primarily for the purpose of sexual arousal. So I think we pretty much could get a pulse appreciation of what pornography is by these definitions. What is masturbation? Okay, it is regarded as the stimulation of one's own genitals for sexual pleasures. So there's self-manipulation of one's own genitals, the penis, the vagina, the clitoris, for one's sexual pleasure. Masturbation is viewed as a substitute. Watch how it's viewed now in the world today. It is viewed as a substitute for partner sex. Okay, so they say, well, I don't need a partner. I could masturbate. I don't need a husband. I don't need a wife. Hey, just give me the masturbation. It's viewed as a substitute for partner sex and regarded as another component of sexuality, making up total sexual expression, according to Jose, whilst also providing a stress-free, and we want to put that in quotes because, as we will see, These sexual behaviors, pornography, and masturbation, as we see later on in our presentation, they certainly lead to dysfunction, and certainly that does not speak to a stress-free outcome, whilst also providing a stress-free way of having sex. Is it really stress-free? Okay, let's get some general information here. Their normalization, pornographic. You have a question, Daniel Brown? Okay, no? Feel free to ask your question. General information here. Their normalization, that is pornographic and masturbatory behaviors, along with moral arguments, are still up for debate in the clinical setting and society at large. And so in our world today, there's a debate regarding the moral aspect of pornography and masturbation. But I want to say here, out of the blocks, hold on. There's a word from the Lord. In other words, God weighs in on it. In other words, we can find the godly perspective on what the world is debating out there when it comes down to the moral aspect of pornography and masturbation. Okay, there's a word from the Lord on the matter. However, what is not debatable in the world about us, in society, is their potential to exert control of those who share in their experiences. In other words, as we're talking about addiction, obsession, hey, we're talking about these behaviors controlling or certainly demanding of individuals who are influenced by them. And of course, this business of control suggests being under their power, being under their impulses. Okay. There is a strong link between pornography and masturbation, and one can almost assume that in the presence of one, there is the other. Okay, so they are almost like two peas in one pod. So if somebody is presenting in the clinical setting for a problem with pornography, the clinician, the therapist, does well by asking the person, do you masturbate? And most likely the answer will be yes, because these two behaviors go hand in hand. They are in the company of each other. Okay, pornographic pictures lead to sexual arousal and eventually to masturbatory needs, according to Christian Lear. Okay, both pornography and masturbation in the context of those who have lost control over their sexual behaviors fall under the overarching term of sexual addiction. So these behaviors, pornography and masturbation, can cause individuals, lead to be found with sexual addictions. And of course, an addiction certainly speaks to an individual losing control over a particular behavior, and nothing else matters. And there could be dysfunction. The job could be lost. The families can be destitute. Hey, all that matters is that addictive behavior and the person who's addicted experiencing it. Sexual addiction can be defined as a maladaptive pattern of use, of impaired control over behavior with associated adverse consequences, according to Federico Garcia and Florence. Somebody pronounce that word. That surname. Tyboat? It's a challenge. So it can be defined as a maladaptive pattern of use and impaired control over behavior. It causes a variety of destruction upon those experiencing it, as well as to spouses, lovers, families, employers, and society at large. And so a person who's addicted, all that matters is that high and that experience with the substance. in the case of chemical addiction, in the case of external addiction, but in the case of masturbation, we can say that it's what they call a process addiction. In other words, it's something that naturally occurs in the body and the brain. Okay, and so, but the person who is addicted certainly will experience dysfunction in all sorts of areas, and does not care, does not check, or if they are caring, they have a difficulty getting themselves out of the predicament. They realize that, hey, they need help, but it becomes so challenging. Of course, there's food addiction, substance addiction. In this case, we're talking sexual addiction. Sexual addiction is a term that can be used to denote that sexual stimulation can function as some sort of drug on the human body, nervous system, and can be dangerous, just like cocaine or heroin to otherwise normal people. And so sexual addiction can be, here was being said, it can be seen like other addictions, okay? It has the same qualities and traits of other addictions. It is in this understanding that pornography and masturbation can be seen as addictive behaviors, okay? And so, so individuals perhaps who have been, who are involved or have been involved with these behaviors, masturbation, pornography, they probably will say to you, hey, I started off I'm monitoring myself. I think I did well initially, but eventually the behavior started to control me. I spoke to an individual while on the campus of Harding University. I interacted with a gentleman, and we were talking about spiritual matters, and he revealed to me that he had a problem with masturbation. He had to do it. He had to stop. Like, I think he was indicating it several times a day, and he was saying that he was delivered from it. But of course, certainly that's commendable if he has been delivered from the behavior, but he described how it was for him. He had to, so to speak, carry on with the masturbatory behavior. And so it exerts a control, this addiction to masturbation, pornography, it exerts a control over the persons who are addicted. Pornographic and masturbatory addictive behaviors impact the pleasure, here it is, reward areas of the brain. So your brain is involved with the sexual experience. And in a normal scheme of things, we may appreciate that really the sexual experience is impacted psychologically. If I'm not, if I'm in a, we say I have a right to the sexual experience in the right context, but if my mind is someplace else, if, hey, I'm busy with work, or I'm preoccupied with perhaps a particular issue, then that will impact or can impact my sexual performances. Okay, so your brain is pretty much involved with the sexual experience, and the addictive behavior impacts the pleasure reward areas of the brain, and are referred to as process or natural addiction in comparison, as we indicated earlier, to an addiction to an external substance like cocaine. Okay, and so the addiction caused by masturbation is referred to as a natural addiction or process addiction. An internal process is going on. The addiction is caused by the internal mechanisms of the body, the brain, in comparison to a substance that causes addiction that is imported into the body. Cocaine, alcohol, heroin, etc. Okay, sexual addiction as a term can also suggest that a person possesses an addictive personality. In other words, okay, so yes, they may have a problem with it. They're addicted to this masturbation behavior, pornography. Well, that may suggest that the person, can be addicted to something else. Okay, and may have the tendency to be addicted to something else. And so somebody spoke earlier, certainly underlying issues can be identified as the target of various addictions that individuals experience. Addictions come out of coping efforts because of trauma, because of issues in our environment, our growing up environment, in our family of origins. We had some, it might have some issues, had some issues there that spawned the behavior. The behavior was a coping mechanism, and it became the master. Sexual addiction as a term can also suggest that a person possesses, as we read earlier, an addictive personality, and that sex is the current medium in which the addiction is manifested. And so this is a sobering statement because it causes us to look beyond the behavior itself. What is going on with self? What is going on with my psyche? Okay, because really the sexual addiction may just be a symptom of what's really going on within in my past, in my brain, in my psychological processes. There may be some unhealed trauma. There may be some unprocessed issues. And so the expression, the sexual addiction, is the indication that something else may be going on. The factors of tolerance and withdrawal are characteristics of pornography and masturbation addiction. Again, just highlighting that how that these behaviors also display the traits of other addictive behaviors.
Yeah, let me
Go ahead, Keith.
But Beneby, let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying basically that there are some triggers that precede in one engaging in pornography and masturbation. There's some thought processes that go ahead of one involving himself in pornography and masturbation. What I call triggers. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, indeed. There can be some shame in the formative years where individuals seeking to gain approval and wanting to please the caregivers, and they may not have gotten that, and therefore they might have resorted to this coping mechanism in masturbation, or there may have been some abuse going on where individuals would have been introduced to sexuality, sexual behavior before time, and they would have been taken advantage of and manipulated and introduced to this world that they ought not to have been introduced to, so tender, so young. And as a result of that, the behavior took root. It followed them, and as they grew into adulthood, and it's hard to shake. Okay, and so there are a number of things that can spawn the addictive behavior. In this case, pornography and masturbation. You know, there are a number of things that go on. And so it's also is quite valuable to look beyond the behavior itself. In the world of psychology, there's an axiom that goes like this: this is about that. Okay, so you see a behavior going on, then we want to look beyond that behavior and seek to get to the root of it, because the behavior itself may just be a symptom of what's really going on internally, unhealed trauma, abuse, deficits. There's attachment issues between caregiver and the caretaker. And so a number of things are going on here that can spawn these addictive behaviors.
May I say
Question? Yes.
When you do say, like the first part what we were reading, when it had to do like with the man shooting himself,
Yeah.
the genitals, I do believe that could happen, because like that is like people, some people have mental problems, some people do certain things. I mean, like, you already know, like when it does come to like, if somebody would actually have shame so much they could do suicidal things.
Yeah.
They might actually end up like try their best just to stop certain other things, and they might actually shoot themselves right there. I even see certain things, like it is some people that like they don't have shame so much, but like it's been like some parts where, you know how like some people even want to turn into a woman, or somebody wants to turn into a man. It has been when they actually cut their self off.
Yep.
So it has been stuff like that. So it really doesn't matter if it does go to the core. It does what you kind of think in your brain.
Yep.
So if
Mhm.
you actually was thinking about like trying your best to stop something, or if you really wanted to think about doing certain things, yeah, I do think they would like actually shoot themselves
It is.
doing that. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
So
for that person, as we bring focus to him again,
yeah.
unfortunately, the person felt as though that this was the only option, and that I shoot my genital off, my penis off. Um,
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's what it came to. But I'm going to submit to you that there are options outside of that drastic self-sabotaging experience. Okay, because you're bringing destruction to yourself. He's bringing this, as he shot his penis off.
Right.
Okay? The point is that there are options, and um, broadly, as we emphasize this point, broadly, whatever we're going through, if we feel that we are stuck, in the particular behavior, we're trying hard to get out of it, but hey, we still find ourselves here. Um, and, if you feel as though that there's no way out, be assured that as you would pause and you would seek help, there are options. Yeah, there are options. No need to commit suicide. No need to drop off the bridge. No need to shoot yourself. There are options. Just keep moving and keep seeking the help. You'll find that you'll get it, and most likely it will be made available to you. And
Brother
so,
Kevin. Oh,
yes, you did.
now I was going to comment on a point that you made, and you said that, some of these things really stem from childhood. And, as I speak to more people, I realize a lot of people have been exposed to sexual things as a child.
Yes.
And I feel like it's important that us, having knowing this, like being careful with our little siblings, being careful with our little cousins. And I know that, a lot of people, when I was speaking to a lot of my friends, their stories are, oh, big cousin so and so tell me, for my guy friends, it was like big cousin so and so come tell me come sit there. And the older cousin would say, okay, watch this. And that's how these addictions and these things start. And even I know being exposed to these things so young makes you more susceptible to like being more curious.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's so important as future parents, future aunties, future, people in the church, like just being that future big brother, big sister in the church, we have to watch out for the little ones, because this is where it starts. And a lot of people cannot break from those chains as adults.
Yeah, beautifully said. And so, indeed, the many, yes, have been introduced to the sexual experiences before they should have been, and as a result of that, addictive behavior set in, uh, promiscuity set in. They were placed on a path uh, towards sexual misconduct because of what happened in their early years, early days. And so there needs to be vigilant, yes, parents, vigilance with regard to caregivers, with regard to protecting the tender ones. Because in a lot of instances, what we see individuals struggling with in their adulthood, you could trace it right back to their early days, to their tender developmental years in the family of origin. You think about murderers, you could not of course, excuse me, the wrong behavior of murderers or those who are sexually involved in a erroneous way, or involved with sexual misconduct. The point is that we could trace the vine, and we could look back at the family of origin and recognize that some things were absent, some things were added that should not have been there. The abuse, another axiom that is in the world of psychology is the pattern one knows is the pattern one knows. Okay, so if I see a behavior in my tender years, I would think I would register it as what? That is negative, a behavior that is negative, a behavior that is problematic. I could register that as something that is normal. And hey, when I grow up, I do what I saw. I now act it out. Okay. Um, as we continue with prolonged indulgences of pornography, excitatory responses to pornography diminishes. And of course, this is the part. This basically what's being presented in the slide is to show you the addictive quality of masturbation, pornography, as we see it in substance abuse and other addictions. Okay, the cocaine addict. I think I heard and I read someplace perhaps that the addict, the one who takes that cocaine for the first time, he received a high that I guess is out of this world, and he never subsequently, as he would abuse the substance, he never really gets that high that he got initially. He is always chasing it. Okay, and I guess he has to get more of the drugs to try and find that high, and so here it is with prolonged indulgences of pornography, excitatory responses to pornography diminish. The repulsion evoked by common pornography fades. Consequently, individuals addicted to pornography generally seek increasing novel ways of pornography to achieve the same excitatory result, according to Jeffrey Ford. And so we see that indeed that there's this, okay, I want to experience a high. I couldn't experience it with this quantity of pornography or this experience. So let me see if I could go further with the other behaviors, with the novel behaviors, to see if I can obtain that high that I'm seeking. And all of that suggests an addiction. Okay. Okay, such addictive behaviors come at a high cost. What's that? It comes at a high cost. They occur at high frequency or utilize a large amount of time. And so
I have a question.
Demand your time.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Some of the people on here already know my story. I was molested when I was younger, and ever since then, I had problems with sexual urges. And it seems like I could never get over it. Every time, that's what my question, what do you think I should do? Every time I go through stuff, I always turn to pornography or stuff like that. And, I don't want to do it, but that's what I always turn to. So what do you think I could do different?
Okay, hold on for me. Daniel? That's your name, Daniel?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hold on for me. I'm going to offer some resources or some help with regard to the addiction in the presentation. Just hold on, we're going to get there. Okay?
I'm sorry. I mean,
just hold on.
I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Did you hear me?
Yes,
I'm saying to you,
sir.
hold on, we're going to get there. I'm going to offer you some solutions to the challenges that you're describing.
Okay, thank you.
Just hold on for me. So these addictive behaviors, they come at a cost. They exert or exact from us. They exert their influence and they exact from us. And so by far are they stress-free. They are far from it. They are demanding our time. They are sometimes expensive economically, psychologically, and socially. Okay, you can't function socially, you can't function psychologically. Your finances are in problems because of the behavior. May persist despite negative consequences. And there it is, the house is blowing up, the house is breaking down, the things are falling down around you, but yet all that matters is that high and the pleasure derived from the addictive behavior may not be able to be stopped by a person who has that as a goal. And Daniel was talking just a while ago, is a difficulty to stop it. Okay, and that all that suggests an addiction. They are characterized by a pattern of out of control sexual behavior. Doesn't matter where it is, the behavior takes place. It's out of control. I have to experience it. The behavior has to go forth. Ongoing desire of effort to limit sexual behavior. Okay, so there's this desire to limit, but yet the behavior still exerts the control. Sexual obsession and fantasy as a primary coping strategy. Okay, and so again, these are characteristic of the behavior. There's this coping. The behavior is resorted to as a coping mechanism, increasing amounts of sexual experiences because the current level of activity is no longer sufficient. We just talked about that. Okay. I want to involve myself more in the behavior because I'm not getting what I want. Severe mood changes around sexual activity. And this is a very important consideration when we think about the interpersonal relationship. Okay. And as we will see, the addictive behavior impacts the mate. In this God-sanctioned institution of marriage, the sexual behavior can impact the sexual relationship between the husband and the wife. I mean, the addiction can impact the sexual relationship between the husband and the wife. And so we want to pay close attention to that. So by far, it is no stress-free behavior when you consider the dysfunction and the problems that such addictive behavior bring to interpersonal relationships. Okay, those struggling with pornography and masturbation addiction encounter other issues. Okay, so you have some comorbidity taking place here with the addiction. There's anxiety disorders. You can understand that. Somebody's trying to fight this off, but losing control. There's fear, there's anxiety, mood disorders, okay? Substance abuse disorders, okay? So it's almost like a downward slope, you know? In other words, okay, these addictive behaviors give exposure to other addictions, okay? Substance eating disorders, compulsive spending, okay? Again, you're trying to perhaps cope with the struggle, cope with the spending becomes a coping mechanism for the real issue going on in the addiction, as we're talking about this evening, the pornographic or masturbation addiction, compulsive gambling, physical health struggles, sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, so you're out of control, you're exposing yourself to STDs, all sorts of diseases out there because one's failing to control themselves. They are exposing themselves. I once recall a gentleman who came and spoke with me, and he admitted, man, that he had a problem sexually. Couldn't help it. He had a problem. Big challenge in his life. And so this thing is real. This thing is something that is with us in our time here on earth with others and with human beings, with our fellow human beings. There's, we don't want to minimize it at all. We don't want to all close our eyes to it. We want to acknowledge it for what it is. It's a behavior. These are behaviors, masturbation, pornography, that can really impact the lives of individuals in a negative way. Abuse due to sexual performance enhances. Okay, and so as one is on this downward spiral, okay, they are looking for enhancers to promote the sexual pleasure. And of course, that leads to other issues, abuse, hurt, etc. Okay, the wider effects on functionality. Okay, so these things, pornography, the sex, the masturbation, they are impacting us. So let's look at it broadly now, even further. Pornography has the capability of reducing an individual's inhibitions and thus facilitating the development of elaborate sexual fantasies and extensive erotic daydreaming. Okay, so it's almost like one enters a room through these behaviors that continues to open up. According to this quote was from Alexander, what's that word? What's the title? You got it. In clinical practice, it has also been suggested that masturbatory frequency and techniques are often implicated in difficulties in male sexual desires, erection, and ejaculation. There it is, a critical component right there that we see from Lipsy, in that these behaviors impact your performances in the proper context with your spouse. For example, you're married to a husband, to a wife. Hey, these addictive behaviors can impact your functioning in the bedroom in the right context. Okay.
Okay, so does that mean that that's okay if you are married and you do that or something?
Let me understand your question. Go again. Let me say it
Is
again.
that okay when you're married and you do that?
What is okay? What is okay?
Masturbation.
I will say this. There's a part of our lesson that will set the right context, our presentation. But let me say this, that just preempt us a little bit. The text will say to us, the sexual bed is, the marriage bed is undefiled. Okay, so look at the context between two individuals. Okay, hey, there was a question given to me while I was asked by a professor, and that stuck with me, and he says, well, what's the purpose of the clitoris? Okay, so, all right.
It has to do with it's very sensitive.
Yeah, no, but the point is, give me a name again.
Oh, Kiana.
Sorry, Kiana. The idea is this. The point is, God created genitals. Okay, God gave it to us with purpose. Okay, so the clitoris is a part of the sex organ, the pleasure organ that has a purpose. So in other words, let me put it this way: the clitoris, a part of the female reproductive organ, and a critical component in the sexual experience, is for play. It's for play. What we're saying here, watch this. What we're saying here, as we will see, it has a proper context.
Right.
Okay? And we'll develop that further. You got the point. In clinical practice, it has also been suggested that masturbatory and frequency and techniques are often implicated in difficulties in male, as I said earlier, sexual desires, erection, and ejaculation. So problems can arise with these behavior in the right context. Okay, so you want to get it on, but because, hey, there's a struggle, it was going on in the wrong context all the while, it can impact you when you get to the right context. It is also noted that participants' masturbatory styles are not contingent with stimulation received during vaginal intercourse. Orgasmic response has become confined to the specific conditions of masturbation, and transfer to partner sex presents difficulties. There it is, the struggle in the right context. Why? Because of behavior. You were associating the sexual experience and pleasure outside the right context. So now you're called to the table to perform and you cannot. Why? Because the pleasure that is derived from the sexual experience is in the wrong context. Clearly, we can see that addiction to masturbation can lead to sexual problems in marriage. Let me say it again. Clearly, we can see that addiction to masturbation can lead to sexual problems in marriage. The negative life consequences of internet sex include missing sleep, forgetting appointments, disregarding partnerships, and overlooking job responsibilities. And so this thing can lead to dysfunction in a big way. Regarding couple relationships, the addictive process is one that interferes with relational competencies and capabilities of struggling partners and consequently causes a disconnection with their significant others. So it can impact your interpersonal relations. This addictive behavior, the addictive behavior, pornography caused by pornography, because of pornography and masturbation can impact your interpersonal relationship with your spouse in a negative way. The high that addicted individuals experience in a misuse of sex is a hollow fill-in for what they really need in their partner. Okay, so what's happening is this: through the addiction, they are really missing what they can experience in a grander way with their partner. Okay, so what is being really said here is that you're not getting what you ought to be getting and can be getting, the thing that is greater with your partner. You're not getting it through this addictive behavior. And you can understand that. In a partner, you don't merely have the organs that accommodate each other, okay, your hand in your glove, but you have the psyche of the person. You have intimacy. You have openness, tenderness. You have bonding taking place. And so even as we just highlight those things, we can appreciate that what masturbation as an addictive behavior, pornography as an addictive behavior, it's not going to provide such that you find in the partnership with your husband or with your wife. Addiction in couple relationships causes affected partners to be dishonest. So it's impacting the dynamics, the relationship dynamics. It causes individuals to be dishonest, self-absorbed, isolated, fearful, confused, apathetic, or lack of interest, or indifference, controlling, sorry, and inauthentic. Okay, so hey, you know, this business of being inauthentic, hey, you're not genuinely there. Something else is causing causing a facade in this relationship. You're not authentically or genuinely present. And so it impacts these addictive behaviors. They impact the interpersonal relationship. Okay, from a origins perspective, pornography, masturbation, addiction, in regard to both young and old adults, here we mentioned it earlier, and bear with me, I know our time is going, but bear with me, we want to cover some information. From etiology, origins perspective, with regard to young and old adults, abusive experiences during childhood, so pornography and masturbation can come out, as we indicated, or stem from abusive experiences during childhood, impaired family relations, self-esteem issues, poor self-image and identity, helplessness, a feeling of helplessness, and so you're reaching, you want to feel like you belong, so you embrace an addictive behavior. You want to feel childhood degradation, feelings of worthlessness, shame. I'm not good enough, so therefore you embrace the behavior that is negative, self-sabotaging behavior as a means of coping. Impaired childhood attachments, okay, patterns with caregivers. We talked about this, alluded to this a little bit earlier, which leads to an inability to self-regulate. Okay, so there's this concept called secure. There's a theory in psychology, model of therapy, an understanding produced by the concept of secure attachments and insecure attachments. And in this secure attachment, there's self-regulation, okay, self-regulation of emotions. But in insecure regulation, insecure attachment, there is this failure to regulate self, and therefore abusive habits can take root. Sexual addiction, therefore, becomes compensatory for early attachment failure, okay? And so it's compensating for what one is looking for emotionally. Lack of mastery of emotional states. Okay, and that's the goal emotionally, to be able to exert a measure of control over yourself or self emotionally. This leads to shame, and addictive acts becomes a suitor. Okay, this leads to shame, and the addictive act becomes the suitor, the soother. A vicious cycle ensues, driven by shame. Okay, you know you need to stop. You seeking to exhibit control, but you renege, you embrace the wrong behavior, so you have this cycle continuing. Okay, so this is a deep thing, and we don't want to all minimize it, and we want to say to those who have struggled with this area, there's understanding, but more than that, we're saying you could beat it. Okay, help is available as we move to end. Help is available. Say that with me wherever you are. Help is available in alternative behavior. Daniel asks a question, well, what do I do? What do I do? I've been struggling for years. I've been struggling for a long time. I realize I shouldn't be here. I don't want to be here. But this behavior seems to control me. What do I do? Well, alternative behavior. Okay, and so then there's a desire to embrace pornography, do something else. Remember, there's the power of choice that is with us. There's the power to choose is a great resource that God has blessed us with. Okay, the power to choose we have. We could decide what we are going to do. And so, but recognizing the difficulty those who are heavily under addiction have, yet we want to say to them that they still have a resource of choice within them, the power to choose, the power to decide. And that can, with that understanding, alternative behaviors can be embraced. Okay, so a feeling that I need to watch porn or masturbate, go for a walk. Okay, go for a jog. Okay, go cycling. Okay, go play basketball. Okay, alternative behavior. In the various therapeutic models, okay, there's therapeutic help that is available, and all sorts of models, therapeutic models are out there that can render assistance with these addictive behaviors. Group therapy, of course, a famous group therapy approach to addiction is what? Anybody know what it is? What I'm thinking? Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Okay, that support that comes through the group community connection. Couples can form a coalition against addiction. Okay, in other words, if you're married, you could say to your husband, your wife, I have a problem, and guess what? Both of y'all could work together towards beating the addiction. Okay, so you have help and you have the support of your spouse. Great, right? So you're not just struggling with yourself and by yourself with the issue. So as you put the issue on the table, you're open, you're honest, you're vulnerable, you're taking a risk, and you're going to tell your spouse, you can receive the help from your spouse. Both of y'all could be in a coalition, form an alliance against this addictive behavior. Therapeutic goals in dealing with addiction, to master the experience of bonding and attaching, and enduring and trusting intimate connections with others, according to Adams and Robinson. Okay, to master the experience of bonding and attaching, in enduring and trusting intimate connection with others. And so the therapy would seek to form secure attachments, or another model will say functional structures, okay, in the relationship and in the behavior that is problematic. A shame reduction, okay, because we talk about this cycle being continued by shame, this feeling of I don't belong, or I am worthless, or I am not good enough. Okay, so the more one has appreciation of one's value, one's worth, one's significance. Hey, God created you, and you have great value. You don't have to do anything, say anything. You are valuable because God created you with value. And so that does a lot. That understanding does a lot for seeking to measure up, and it can mitigate against negative shame, that shame that says I'm not good enough, okay, or I'm no good, and we got to watch how others would seek to impose that shame on us. You're no good like you're no good, pa. You ever heard that? You're no good like you're no good, pa. No, no, no. Okay, so the therapeutic goal is designed to reduce the shame. It's designed to help with the regulation of emotions or affect. And so the goal in therapy is to help individuals regulate their emotions. So that where their emotions are not controlling them, but they are controlling their emotions. And of course, boundary development, being able to say no, or being able to restrict what you allow to influence you. Okay, and so all these things are critical goals in therapy as individuals would deal with the addiction. Okay, concluding considerations. While our presentation dealt primarily with obsession and addiction, there should be an aversion to pornography for what it represents and the destruction that it causes. Okay, so while we recognize that the behavior of masturbation pornography can get to the addictive level or reach the addiction phase, somebody may be saying, well, hey, as long as I'm not addicted, hey, it's okay. Well, we're suggesting no. We're saying there should be a dislike for it on the whole. Okay, our sexual organs are good. God created them. Of course, the reason why remember, there's this slippery slope. Okay, some things are gateways to other problematic behaviors. Okay, our sexual organs are good, and then we're going to bring in the perspective of God. How is God viewing us in this addictive behavior, or this masturbation and pornography, this indulging, this obsession of it? How's God viewing us with it? Is he saying, go ahead, you got it, yeah, go ahead with that behavior? No, no. Why? Because as we will see, he created sex and it is good, but it has a certain context. It's for a certain context. And you'll find that when that's outside of the context, there's problems with God. There's problems with God. We could identify all sorts of contexts where the sexual experience is inappropriate, or it is not in the right context. Lesbianism, homosexuality, bestiality, adultery, fornication, incest. So all sorts of contexts. While you may have a sexual expression, okay, we are saying that in a number of instances, it's out of the right context. We will see and understand that the right context is in marriage. Our sexual organs are good. So God created the clitoris, right? Who created the clitoris? God created the penis. God created the vagina. God created the breast. Okay? And when he did that, he pronounced, and when he created man, hey, it is what? Good. Okay? But remember now, the enemy, from a spiritual perspective, he wants to us to mishandle that which is good. He wants those pleasures, those desires that God has given us legitimately to be fulfilled and to be experienced in the wrong context. God also made us with the capacity of self-control, okay? She looks good, okay? She has appeal, but God made you with control. He created you with control. Paul will say, I beat my body, and I bring it under what? I make it my slave. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I beat my body. In other words, I'm not allowing my body to control me. I beat my body and I make it my slave, least after I would have preached to others, I be disqualified. And so God made them with appeal, the opposite sex. They are beautiful, they are handsome, but God made you with self-control, with the capacity to set boundaries. It can be exerted over bodily changes, that is self-control. So you're growing up now, you're developing, you're in puberty, you are maturing sexually. Well, guess what? Self-control is with you. Because your body is changing, your genitalia is enlarging, it doesn't mean that you must allow it to have its way. It can endure, that is self-control, over a long period of time. Self-control. I just want you to be aware of that. I'm not married yet. Yeah, seems as though my biological clock is coming, is expiring. Oh, there's still self-control to be considered and to exhibit. It can endure over a long period of time or until change comes. Okay? And a powerful verse, Mark 10:27. With people it is impossible, but with God all things, for all things are possible with who? With God. So because my biological clock is running out, that's not a license for me to indulge in the sexual pleasure outside the right context. Pornographic and masturbatory behaviors are connected to the fantasy world and they distract from reality. It's not reality, what we see in the pornographic world. They're part of the fantasy world. As we talk about the proper context, they take away from God's sanction, from the God-sanctioned context. And where is the God-sanctioned context for the sexual expression? Marriage. Say it with me. Marriage. It was Jacob who said to Laban, his uncle, give me my wife, for my time is completed. You know, Jacob worked for Laban for a period of years, for a period 7 years initially. Then he worked for him another 7 years, 14 years to get the wife that he wanted and to possess and have the wife that he wanted. He says, give me my wife, for my time is completed that I may go into her. And so, hey, the introducer, Keith Benavy, he indicated that scripture is replete with sexual language. This is one of those scriptures. And how do we look at that? Do we look at that as something good in this case or something negative? He says, hey, man, I've worked for this woman, give me my wife so that I may have sexual relationship with her. The time has come. But notice the context of this wonderful pleasure and wonderful blessing in marriage. Give me my wife. I have come into my gardens. This is a quotation from Songs of Solomon 5:1. And of course, Songs of Solomon is really replete with sexual expressions, in metaphoric language, figurative language. We could see the sexual implications. I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh along with my balsam. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk. Who's he talking about? What has been talked about there? Certainly, the sexual experiences. Another portion from Songs of Solomon. Songs of Solomon. My beloved has gone down to his garden, to beds of balsam, to pasture his flock in the gardens and gather lilies. So there's this talk of pasturing the flock in the garden. You think he's talking sexually there? Directly, yes. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He who pastures his flock among the lilies. Is he indirectly referring to the genitalia? Mm-hmm. But because of immorality, Paul says, each man is to have his own wife and each woman is to have her own husband. And so we want to glorify the institution of marriage. We want to big it up. What do you say in your youthful language? Somebody, come on, talk to me. What do you say if we want to big up marriage? We want to what? Come on. Somebody. How do I big up marriage in the youthful vernacular or language? Am I okay by saying we want to big it up? Somebody? Come on, somebody talk to me. Am I okay in saying that we want to big up marriage as we talk about it being the place for the sexual experience? In it, God is saying, go ahead. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I see Keisha said you can hype it up. Hype it up.
Exactly. Yes, in it, Keisha, hey, God is saying what? Go ahead. You got my stamp of approval. Bang. Well, in marriage, I've given you those organs. I've given you those feelings to be enjoyed in marriage. That is the context. And when we see those pleasures being fulfilled outside of marriage, we have problems with self in our interpersonal relationships and in our relationship with God. The Hebrew writer will say that the marriage bed is undefiled. God's and our enemy, Satan, who specializes in ruining the good thing God created, is influencing the world of pornography and its impact on human behavior. So who's behind it? Satan. Who's behind the world of pornography? And of course, masturbation, we say, because you're seeking the pleasure that belongs in marriage. We're saying that the enemy is at work. Embracing pornography sanctions the improper behavior of others. You see the wider implications of such behavior? Okay, remember the right context for the sexual expression. As you develop, young people, there's sexual, there's erections when you sleep, etc. Hey, you don't need to be fooling with that organ. It will take care of itself. Okay, the body has functions to release the fluids that are, in case of the males, that generates. And so, hey, the point is that you could master your body, and at the appropriate time in the bonds of marriage, your sexual organ will find its fulfillment and its purpose. Okay, questions? Remember the right context for the sexual expression. What's that context? Marriage. Questions?
Hey, Brother Kev.
Hey, good to hear from you.
Not exactly a question, but maybe just a few comments. I was just thinking, I feel like the church could do a better job of just not introducing, but like creating a safe space to talk about this stuff, especially among young men, just because I guess a lot of young people go to school and they find out about sex and masturbation and pornography. They find out about that stuff at school. The church, they usually don't even hear about that stuff in church until they get like to be older. So I just saying maybe the church could do a better job in like having guy groups or something to hold each other accountable, and maybe just talking about this stuff so they can understand it in the right context and so they can have a purer understanding of how they're supposed to conduct themselves and how they're supposed to act when this stuff does show up, because this stuff is
You're breaking up a little bit, Abishai.
introduced to younger, because it's what they see. Instagram is what they see every day.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I just, to end it off, just maybe have groups in church where everybody could talk about. Just a question. Did you say masturbation was a sin?
Again, the context. Remember what's happening there. You're stimulating yourself with sexual pleasure. And that, again, that's supposed to be in the right context, marriage, right? The sexual expression.
So you could do it in marriage if you're thinking about your significant other, right?
Again, the marriage bed is undefiled. And so we're saying that the organs that God has blessed the man and the woman with is for purpose, okay? And so, you know, again, why did God create the clitoris? Okay, and certainly it's an organ, it's a part of the female reproductive organ, part of the female genitalia, and for a reason. And so the context of marriage makes the sexual expression whole, sound, pleasing before Almighty God. So it is.
So any sexual expression outside of marriage is not good.
Problematic, yes, it's problematic.
I mean, going back to the point I had about just having an accountability group in church, just a consideration. It'll help people who feel like they don't have anybody to turn to. It'll help with all that and everything.
Yes.
So just a suggestion.
Hey, I appreciate that very much, Abishai, and indeed, it's something for us to consider as a leadership church. And so while we could say, hey, we're doing something now, but I do believe I understand what you're saying in terms of maybe even earlier. And of course, purposefully setting the right, purposely creating the context and the environment for speaking to such things. I agree with you. A good point. Appreciate it.
Can I see Heidi and then Eudacia? Heidi and then Eudacia, their hands are raised.
Heidi?
Yeah, I know I stepped out briefly, but you might have covered this, but I wanted to say a question and a statement. So I actually looked into the topic for today and to see whether or not it's hard cut, whether pornography is completely different, but I'm focusing on masturbation here. They were not related to pornography because I know they're usually like paired, but there are people who engage in pornography without masturbation. No, sorry, my bad. There are people who engage in masturbation without pornography, without the assistance of pornography. And so in that, I know the Bible mentions lusting after the flesh or whatever. So that would make sense why, okay, it would be associated with a sinful practice, because if you're masturbating to a flick, that would be lusting after the actors inside the flick, or if you're thinking about a particular individual during the activity, then you would be lusting after someone. But what would you speak to persons who do not, they just engage in the act itself without having anyone particular in mind whilst engaging in the activity?
Yeah, that's my question too.
Because that can happen. People cannot have anyone in particular. They just
And a foppery.
the sensation. Yeah, they're only there for the sensation.
Yeah,
and so
yeah. Yeah, the sensation that the sexual expression provides. Okay, and so granted, you may be able to split and have a disconnect between the masturbatory action and the person, but we're still dealing with something that is a sexual expression. You're seeking pleasure from it, and we're saying and encouraging. We're saying that the sexual expression belongs in marriage. Okay?
So can you
right?
tell me where that comes in then?
Pardon?
The expression being pertaining to marriage, where does that come in?
For, well, if you want to please God, and God is saying, God is sanctioning the sexual expression in marriage. In other words, Scripture will say to us that the married bed is undefiled. Paul will say, to avoid sexual immorality, let every man have his own wife. And so God, okay, this wonderful thing called sex, that we use our sexual organs to experience as human beings, God has a context for it, the use of such organs and the experiencing of such pleasure derived from such organs. God has a context for it, and that context is marriage. You find yourself out of that context, you're in problems with God, and you can find yourself in problems with your interpersonal relationships. You find yourself in problems with your functioning as an individual. Okay, so Scripture will say to us to avoid immorality. Okay, the answer for that, the answer to avoid sexual immorality is the marriage. Because in marriage, God is saying that is where, or not in these words, but we can understand from the context that says the marriage bed is undefiled. And he's saying to you, hey, to avoid sexual immorality, because if you have the sexual experience outside the bond of marriage, it's immorality. All right, it's sexual immorality, form in adultery or fornication, okay, or uncleanness, or and so. But God is saying that, hey, you want to avoid sexual immorality, you want to please me. We see from Scripture, hey, it is in the bonds of marriage that you embrace the sexual experience.
Okay, I see.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Heidi. So before we go, Keith, Heidi, you still? What?
Oh, I just, because you mentioning the context of the marriage is a turning point, because
sorry?
It's somewhat of a turning point, because a lot of persons focus on the aspects of lust, adultery. Like if the masturbation involves you lusting against against another person, or tempting you to commit adultery in your heart or whatever, then that's the really key thing that made it sinful. But now you've mentioned, okay, you put that to the side and you've now said, okay, well, what was his intended purpose for this activity, and the examples that are provided. That's a different angle altogether, because persons really just keep mentioning the same, three things. And I think that it'd be important for the things that fall outside of that to be addressed, because someone could be sitting in this very room and say, okay, this doesn't apply to me because I don't watch porn, or I don't lust after persons when I engage in this activity, or I don't feel compelled to commit adultery. So I mean, commit adultery with another person. So
yeah. Certainly we could split the behavior. You may not be involved with pornography, but masturbate. But we're saying that the masturbation is for goal, right? It's targeting something, right? You're experiencing pleasure. It impacts your brain, the pleasure reward center of your brain. You're experiencing something that belongs in marriage with your partner. Okay, you are, in case of you're reaching orgasm in the case of the man, as he would manipulate his genitalia. And so he's relying upon it. He's seeking that pleasure in masturbation action, even if he splits that behavior from pornography or thinking about somebody. You're still going after something. And that's something that you're going after belongs in marriage. Okay, Eudacia, I hope that helps, Heidi.
Brother Kevin, thank
Nothing,
you for,
nothing
oh,
else.
Okay, Eudacia.
thank you for presenting, first of all. But I wanted to piggyback off of Abishai's point because I thought it was very excellent. And like I've noticed too that, you know, the psychology and everything is good. And it's good to say like, you know, do other stuff. But reality of it is if you tell somebody with an addiction, like go take a walk, like the way that they're going to look at you and the way that they're going to process that may not be good. So that's where this accountability, I think, comes in. And I know as females, number one, for us, if we struggle with anything, doesn't matter what it necessarily is, it's harder for us because of taboo and different stuff to go to anybody. So not only do I think males need accountability, but I think the whole church needs to take taboo off this subject, because when we think of anything sexual, like, you know, I feel like sometimes adults look at the youth and they're like, oh yeah, they can't feel this, they can't do this. And I feel like it needs to be more of a older brother, older sister partnering with us, because reality of it is our hormones are raging, and topics like masturbation, topics like porn, these things are not really discussed in the church. So as Abishai said, like, you know, listen, people just struggling, when reality of it is a lot of people struggle with this. And I feel like we need to stop taking the taboo off of it. Even church sermons need to be targeting these subjects, in my opinion, because even the older sisters and brothers in Christ struggle. And I don't feel like there's nobody really to talk to, or I don't feel like there's really accountability, because a lot of people feel like, oh, if I tell somebody this, they could judge me. And whatever we need to do, we need to break down that stigma, because I don't feel like anybody could get anywhere if we don't, if that makes sense. So whereas like, you know, stuff like taking a walk, go for a jog, like it has to be a group, the help of a group, in my opinion, along with individual self-help.
Yeah.
But we got to do it together.
Yeah, actually, Eudacia, you're really echoing what I said. Of course, I didn't just say take a walk. We also highlighted the group support and the, of course. So and I agree with you. I agree with you that indeed the environment needs to be such whereby individuals, environment needs to be such where people, those who are struggling, can find, can easily and freely, without stigma, easily and freely deal with the issue by interacting with others. Certainly the group, the community that is in the body of Christ can function effectively here by assisting one another, assisting individuals with the various struggles, including pornography and masturbation addictions. So the point is, I agree.
You have to.
Who's that?
I think Fiona, mute your mic.
Okay, there we go. So yes, I agree. I agree with you, Eudacia, that indeed, you know, we don't want to discount the alternative behavior because it has a place, you know, taking the walk, if that's the alternative behavior. But indeed, matter of fact, in a lot of instances, there's not just one thing that is necessary to help individuals with their various challenges. You know, it's kind of like the presentation that I saw yesterday, where the doctor was talking about breast cancer, and he was indicating that it is not just the surgeon, the activities, the operation of the procedure of the surgeon that cures the breast cancer, but the other aspects of the process, chemotherapy, and others who work along with the patient. with regard to the cancer, the breast cancer. And so we are not at all saying that is only the taking the walk or the alternative behavior. And if we can have that collective, multi-dimensional approach to the issues, then that's great. And so surely we want to talk about the group aspect of the family of God, the community aspect of the family of God. That is very helpful. We want to be able to be open and be able to have the confidence and feel the safety in dealing with individuals or talking to individuals with our particular issues. And so I agree with you, Eudacia, and we need to, as leaders among God's people, we need to perhaps be more intentional with dealing with the sexual challenges that are out there among the young people. I agree with you.
Okay, Kevin, we have DB and Kazon, and then Kazon, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and then we'll seek to wind down as time has escaped us. This is a very good discussion. All of the contributions so far has been really rewarding. Go ahead, DB and Kazon.
Okay, good night, everybody. I am glad that you clarified I take a walk thing, because I was concerned about that as well. Because to me, I'm hearing, I think it was Daniel. He had an issue, and I'm trying to figure out how is it that we're going to help Daniel. Yes, I may take a walk. Yes, I may go for a jog. I may go for a swim. I may do something, but the problem is still there. I'm understanding him to say, okay, I was abused as a child, or I had this issue going on with me as a child. So now I could appreciate what Abishai is saying with the group, with accountability. So somebody, please help. You know, it's almost like a cry out for help, that I need someone to help me to cope with these issues that I had as a child. Because I know for a fact, I guess in working with the crisis center some years ago, you know that some persons say, no matter how old you may get, if you have not addressed those issues that you had as a child, it's going to affect you, affect all the decisions that you make as an adult. So I could appreciate that accountability, that accounting to each other. And I just want to throw out here that that was one of the purposes of us starting that college group, that we weren't able to really get started because of the lockdown. We had gotten started, but we didn't. But that was one of the reasons we wanted that young ladies group. And we are still going, to some persons already came back to me about it. So we're going to still go forward with that in this semester and trying to help the sisters. But we need something for the young man, because sisters they'll express themselves, they'll open up. But the young men, you have to kind of pry it out of them. And so I feel that something like that is past you.
Okay, very good. I think it's sent. Thank you very much, DB. Let me just, again, maybe just want to say that indeed there could be a multi-dimensional approach to dealing with the issue. We're not saying that taking a walk is the only thing to consider, or the alternative behavior, which can be taking a walk, but it can be playing basketball. There are other resources when it comes down to helping individuals deal with the struggles, okay? To help individuals regulate those emotions. And so again, let me just go through this slide very quickly. There are various therapeutic models that therapists can look at and help individuals solve various struggles with. Group therapy, there's the community aspect of the help that we are talking about. The coalition between couples, okay? Watch this now, to establish intimate connections with others. That could go a long way, because you find a lot of people who have struggles in various areas. They have some problems with intimacy. They have problems with shame. And so help can be in the form of reducing the shame, so the individual may not feel the inclination to embrace that problematic behavior in some sort of coping mechanism, regulating emotions. And so we're not at all saying that all of this is taking a walk. You know, there's a lot of things that go into helping individuals defeat and overcome the struggles they may have with that addictive behavior or that problematic area of their lives. And so, by no means, not just not one. It's not just one. It's not the help that is provided is not one. Dimensional, is not singular in nature. It's almost like a cocktail of resources being directed to the individual with the struggle. Kazin, how do you pronounce your name? Are you there?
Kazin, oh,
There
he
you go.
left.
Yes. Okay.
Kiana, Hannah.
Okay.
Yes.
Kazin.
Are you trying to talk to Kazin or talk to me? I'm sorry. Which one?
Kazin left, so it would be you, Kiana.
Okay. I wanted to ask, like, don't you go through it anyways, like when you are growing up, and you know how like you do have to like do certain things, like especially when you are learning how to get yourself together and even clean yourself up, and then like as you're growing, like your certain body parts are growing, like aren't you going to go through that a lot anyways, even if you didn't like watch porn and certain stuff or something like that? Because like, isn't it like, you know, like way back in the day, like didn't they go through that certain type of stuff, like even like in the 1900s and stuff? Didn't they have to like go through that stuff, like as they did start to grow up, like they did see like younger boys, younger girls, stuff like that, and then as they see their body is growing and as they are cleaning their self up, learning how to do that, like wouldn't they like want to start doing that stuff?
You're again, the body changes, okay, during puberty. That's how it has been through the various generations, right? The body is changing. It is getting ready for the sexual experience. Okay, if you're referring to that, then yes, the body changes. But we're saying that accompanying that, of course, knowledge is important here. Accompanying that is self-control. Okay, and so it is one is not allowing the body to control them, but controlling the body. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, so here it is. The body is responding. It's flexing its muscles. For example, in a developing male, there's an erection. Okay.
Right.
There it is. Boom, it's an erection. Okay, what do I do with it? Okay, it's going to come down. I don't need to masturbate because of it. Okay, so knowledge is
Okay.
Okay.
So you don't like really have to, I know you don't need to do that, but like sometimes can't you not help that, like help by like touching?
Masturbation is behavioral, it's, you decide to do it, right? So it's not,
okay.
You can't help it.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Kazin is back.
Okay. Hazel?
Yeah, sorry about that, my internet cut out. So in regards to masturbation, I kind of understood it. I had some discrepancies with that because it's like I thought it was okay, like if you weren't like imagining yourself, kind of doing it with somebody. That was just like okay if you could blank, fuck.
Yeah.
And so yeah, thanks for clearing that up. And another thing where it would help too, if like for people who struggle with masturbation, I let out an honest secret, right? One time I used to did masturbate for 3 years straight, just that's almost self-control. Like it wasn't easy, right? But it was just like for 3 years straight. But then I eventually started to do it again, and then I stopped again. So I mean, basically, what helped me to get to that point of 3 years was actually doing it in small steps. You don't really have to take big chunks of stuff. So for example, if you masturbate, like let's say every day, you could say, let's say, make a goal, right? You could say stuff like, okay, I'm not gonna masturbate for 1 week straight. And you have to actually, that's where the exercise of self-control comes in. Of actually like not doing it for a week. And then after you complete that week, don't like, I don't say masturbate, but like, let's say, okay, I did it for a week, I can do it for another week. And I can do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then it keeps going on like that. So that's how you eventually kill the flesh, and eventually your spirit starts to, you know, take control of your body. And you don't have to do it alone. You know, you always ask God to help you. That's why the Holy Spirit is there. He's the helper, but he's not an enabler. So yeah, that's my point on that's.
No, he's not a helper. Oh,
no, he's not an enabler, but he's a helper.
Because one may think that if he's a helper, he's an enabler.
No, I say he's not an enabler. He's a helper.
Okay, so qualify him not being an enabler. Speak more to that.
So he would actually so basically meet this, like, God didn't create us to be robots, right? He gave us a free will. That's why he gave us a free will. Yeah. And he gave us like a certain level of help. So he would tell us, or he would prompt us to do something. So you would actually have to know the voice of the Holy Spirit. He would prompt us to do something, right? But he won't force us to do something. It's all in our decision. So we are the creators of our own world. So basically what we have to do is kind of like, okay, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? Do this, do that. But he still eventually be there to be like, hey, you should probably stop doing that. But he is not gonna like, he's gentle. That's like one of the fruits of the spirit, right? That's how you know it's him. He's always a gentle voice. And he's always, you know, talking very gently and trying to get you to like do stuff, but he will never force you to do it. So that's why I say he will help you, but he won't really like enable you. He won't really do stuff for you.
In other words, you have a part to play. You know, if I understand.
Yeah, you would definitely have a part to play.
He's going to direct you in the right path, but you must choose the path.
Yeah. And sometimes he will bring up situation, like if your situation is that bad, like he would actually allow certain stuff to happen in your life that will cause you to kind of rethink your life and be like let's say, for example, traumatic situations, right? Like, for example, you could have like a motorcycle accident. I'm not saying that he caused that, but it just happened, right? But you would be completely fine. You wouldn't really get injured. But then in that situation, he would kind of be like, hey, this is a problem. You like, it's kind of put out there, here, there's a problem that you need to actually fix. And it's causing you to be pushed away from God. So, and that happened to me too, because I remember like I was actually kind of drifting away too, and like certain stuff would happen. Because I didn't pray for like, let's say 7 months to almost a year, right? So it's like certain stuff like that happened, and that would kind of like push me back into, you know, the narrow path because of like certain situations. So that way he would help you in a sense too, but you still have to be listening out for him, and you still actually have to kind of listen to the Holy Spirit and kind of judge it for him. You just have to listen to it. So I mean, that's my take on it. So with that said, I honestly had a question. So in regards to marriage, what are like certain things you can and can't do, like regarding sex? That was my question.
That sounds like another topic, right? But no, I want to emphasize this, that the God is saying go ahead with the sexual expression, enjoy yourself in the bonds of marriage. But that's what that's another subject matter in terms of exactly what's happening in the bed. That's another subject matter. But it's in the bonds of marriage where God is giving a stamp of approval for the sexual expression.
Okay, Brother Beneby, let me just add there. Let me just jump in there, because I think the person asking the question is he may be getting at this. A lot of people think that introducing pornography into the marriage is okay. And we need to say, no, that's not okay, because of the defilement, because of the fornication, because of us bonding ourselves with individuals who have no regard for God's standard of morality. I think we need to throw that in the mix right away.
Okay, and then you have the question can be asked. I mean, we talked about how that when we look at the wider implications of pornography, is that in one sense you're sanctioning the behavior of those who improper behavior, of others who are promoting the pornography industry. And so indeed, maybe there's a need for another part as we big up the marital institution. Maybe we need to speak to the sexual pleasure, the sexual experience in the bonds of marriage in another section. But we want to say that it is in the bonds of marriage that the sexual experience finds the okay from God.
I see Daenerys, and then we'll wind down. And is Jimmy on the platform? Jimmy, please. Boy, this is some good stuff, Kev. I hate to kind of fall it down, but Daenerys, and then we're gonna ask Jimmy to close on with a prayer. Before that prayer, I'm gonna have an announcement.
Good night, everyone. Another thing I know when it comes to addiction, it's easy to look for an excuse to do it, or to look for a way to give in to your addiction. Like I know, like you may be sitting there contemplating giving in. You may say, "Dear God, if you ain't want me to do this, send a fly past my way or something." And then a fly go past you, and you say, "Dear God, if you're serious, send another fly." You know, like you always looking for an excuse or something. But that's when you gotta realize, those are just thoughts seeping in. Those are just the devil sending those little nitpicking thoughts. The tiny little, you don't think too much of them, but them tiny little thoughts, they lead to you giving in to whatever you may be struggling with. And so you gotta be razor sharp. You gotta be razor sharp and discerning, and know what leads to you giving it. Don't put yourself in situations that lead to you giving into that addiction.
Yeah, appreciate it. So you got to watch for those incremental steps that will take us away from God. And of course, we don't want to justify the wrong, you know. So appreciate that point.
I see Daniel raised his hand. I think we got to yield to Daniel before we have that prayer.
Daniel?
Yes. Hi. I don't know if y'all ever heard of SAA, but it's Sexaholic Anonymous. I do belong to it. But I find, when I was going to meetings every day, I was much better off. I talked to my sponsor tonight, and he made me realize that I stopped going. I was just going maybe once a week. And he told me, he said, I need to get back to what I was doing, because he saw a big difference in me. I was willing to work the program. I was a lot closer to God, everything was much better. And a lot of people been telling me, I don't need these meetings, but now I realize, without these meetings, I'm all messed up. Yeah. And, I'm hoping, one day to start a meeting for people that have sex problems. I am a sex offender, and I'm thinking about starting a meeting, because a lot of these guys, they've been women that are addicted. I'm not saying everybody, but everybody that's addicted, mostly addicted to porn and stuff like this, it has been molested when they were little. Yeah. And it's a repeating thing. Yeah. So I got to, he told me I got to step up to the plate, and start doing these meetings, and start letting God use me more. And I thank you for all your knowledge. I mean, this helped out a lot. I appreciate it, bro. I love you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you. But I realize, I'm looking forward to this weekend. There's a conference for SAA all the whole weekend. They got meetings all throughout the day, and I'm gonna try to. I'm trying to make as many as I can to jumpstart my program, because last night I was told by a 2-day-old guy that's been in the program for two days. He said, he was going to start doing a 90 and 90. And I was like, I've never heard somebody that hungry for recovery. And I thanked them. I said, you convicting me. It's you're making me. I've been in the program for almost 8 years, and I did notice the year that I did meetings every day, I was so much better.
Yes.
And all of that helps anybody. I hope it does. If anybody has questions about SAA, I'm willing to ask. Willing to answer them. And thanks for all your knowledge. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Let me just say as we end that you may feel free to give me a call, 242-427-4497. That's 242-427-4497. Feel free to give me a call if you feel as though that I can assist further in this matter that we've been talking about. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present, and let's remember that recovery helps, deliverance, redemption is possible with God's help.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Elder Beneby, for your presentation. And of course, it seems as though we need a part 2 to this because there are a lot of questions. And certainly, we want to continue our purity series. We're going to take a break on next Friday. Next Friday is a holiday, but we want to resume the following Friday with the 3rd installment in our purity series. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity for more intimate dialogue with regard to sexual struggles, as we plan to have breakout rooms for the ladies and then for the men. I think that'll give ample opportunity to get deeper. I know Eudacia is all for accountability and all, and that's one way we could encourage accountability. So we're excited about the last installment in the purity series, scheduled for not this Friday, but Friday after next. But again, thank you very much, Elder Beneby. And I do hope that there was satisfaction with regard to the answers to the questions asked. And I'm happy, Kev, that you extended yourself further by giving your name, just in case there are some additional questions that need answers. I'm quite sure that there may be. Again, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We're excited, we're glad that you truly participated, you showed up. And we do hope that this series, this presentation tonight was beneficial to you. It's a strong reminder that we need to be sexually pure. And with God's help, we can do it. With God's help, we can do it. We can transform our minds by God's help. Let me go ahead and ask Jimmy to close out in the word of prayer.
All right. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us there this evening. Thank you for blessing us with Brother Kevin and presenting this topic. I pray that you will be with all of us that are fighting this silent battle with porn and masturbation. I pray that you will allow us to overcome it and just find means to cope in a more healthier way. I pray that you will be with us as we continue this series. Allow topics of this nation not be taboo topics, but topics that are openly discussed. Let's be with everyone as we leave. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
And amen. I want to invite you to say goodbye as you leave, and appreciate that prayer, Jimmy.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, brothers and sisters.
Have a good night.
Hey, Kiona, good to see you.
Hi.
Good night, everybody.